Good evening, all. We are live, I think. The tech's working, so that's good. Welcome to TRH, the Reconnection Hour by Mr. Perfect. Apologies, I wasn't around last week, had a bit of a break. I was exhausted, needed just a week off, so it's been pretty crazy in my world at the moment, but all good things happening, so very pleased. As you know, I'm Terry, founder, CEO of Mr. Perfect. What is Mr. Perfect? Well, we bring men together at barbecues to create communities in connection for the betterment of mental health and to reduce isolation. We are toying at the moment with a new tagline. Instead of our mental health mate, we're thinking about more than a barbecue or something similar, but I'll keep you posted on that because I think we've kind of evolved a little bit more than just the barbecues now. So what's TRH? Well, we normally chat to health professionals or other people just doing incredible things in the community, in the world of connection, mental health, you name it. I normally alternate it. So tonight we'll have someone on who's doing something just unbelievable in the community. A little bit of a disclaimer, I'm not a mental health professional, say this every week, neither is the person who's coming on. Nothing that should be too triggering, nothing too gory that we'll talk about tonight. Just be aware we may mention mental health. How's our week been in the Mr. Perfect world? We've got now, I think, we're pretty pumped for summer. We've got about 35 barbecues running with a few more on the way soon. Always welcome to have more, even though it's pretty busy. Please get in touch if you're keen to find out more. I can send you some information and what the process is. Head to our website or a Facebook page, and you'll find out more info there and we can have a chat. We've got some fancy new t-shirts that are, I think, end on the weekend. They're a limited edition sale on the website, so just head to mrperfect.org.au. We've got a sausage design and a barbecue design, which people seem to love. Head there. They're going to be going down soon, so limited edition. Now, we've got a special thing this weekend. Instead of just barbecues, we've got a football meetup running at Cook Park in Sydney on Sunday at 11 a.m. I'll send or I'll comment in the thing afterwards the link to the event. Pete, who's on the board and also one of the people that helped me found this and a good friend of mine, we started it with soccer, having a kick around for 2 hours. That evolved into the barbecues, and we're going to sort of go full circle and get guys together over summer for a few kick arounds. So if you're keen to do that in Sydney, please come along. Now, the important stuff. One of the things that really helps my mental health generally, and just when I'm feeling anxious particularly, or I need to run something through in my head, is going for a walk, be that around my block. I've got a pretty sort of suburban area. I take the boys for a walk, or I go for a walk on my own, or I go before work, or whatever it may be. I even do it at lunchtime. I go for a walk, and before I know it, I can get lost in a good way. So I'll go for a long walk, clear my head, feel a little bit tired, get the heart pumping, work through some things that are going on. So walking's always been big for me. Some people have said I'm old before my time, but I love it. So really apt that tonight on Mr. Perfect's TRH, we're going to be chatting with Mark Burns from the Man Walk. Now, Mark started an event with a group of men getting together in Kiama, South Coast, New South Wales, on a Friday morning to walk, talk, and support each other. Next thing you knew, it exploded. It is all over the country now. I'm sure he's going to tell me more. We have many sort of close connections, people doing barbecues that also do a Man Walk. So really keen to bring him in and say hello. So good evening, Mark. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Terry. Thanks for having me, mate.
No, you are welcome. It's been a long time coming. As I said just then in my little intro, there isn't like a week go by where I don't hear about you and what you're doing in a positive way. So I'm so keen to chat to you tonight and find out more. So what I normally do to start it is a little bit of an intro about you, maybe a little bit about your background, what you do, and why the Man Walk and how you got into it.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, mate. As you mentioned, I'm down on the south coast of New South Wales. My real job is as a physiotherapist, which I really enjoy. I love that connection with people and getting to have the conversation and help them with their pain and get them back on the road to recovery. I grew up down here in Kiama, did all my schooling at Kiama Public School and Kiama High School, and started my university career at Wollongong before moving to New Zealand for a few years in the mid-90s. My mum and dad and family moved over there with my dad's job with BHP, And I thought, well, I better go over there and let them look after me for a bit longer yet. Otherwise, I've got to get a real job and pay rent and do those kind of things. So I had a few lovely years in Auckland in the middle part of the 90s, finishing my exercise science degree, and then spent a few years sort of bouncing around sort of North America, ski instructing in Canada during the winters and teaching tennis and some summer camp work in Boston during the summers, and sort of across to Europe in between times. So that was a really fun way to open my eyes to the rest of the world through the mid part of my 20s, before moving back to Australia in the late 90s and doing my postgrad work in physiotherapy. And I've been back down in Kiama since sort of 2001 and working as a physio since then.
Amazing. And I don't think it's a coincidence that a lot of the people I talk about that do similar things to us and yourself, as in these movements outside of our day jobs, many come from some form of health background or in health in their job, whether it be a physio, exercise physiologist I was chatting to the other week, personal trainer, chiropractor, you name it. Like there's a real, I don't know, theme there. In your job as a physio, do you ever come across or notice aspects of guys not doing so good?
Often. Yeah. I think the part of it with physiotherapy and part of it that drew me to it is that sort of connection and creating that relationship with my patients, and hopefully it's something I'm reasonably good at these days. I'm still at work here. I've just finished for the evening, and I think there's something about maybe like when you go to the hairdresser, not that there's much going on for me these days, it's a bit of a but when you go to the hairdresser and you feel like you're there and you've got some one-on-one connection, but even more so with physio, chiro, osteo, these kind of things, when you're in a private space, you're having a private conversation. I think the laying on of hands as well, and that physical connection often and building of relationship and trust often brings out a lot of other conversations, and that's how you learn about people as a physio and help them with their pain. But yeah, there's often a lot of conversations around, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling lonely, I'm struggling with this, I'm not enjoying my work, and I'm happy to be an ear for that as part of my physiotherapy role, but also as part of the Man Walk. And I'm not a mental health professional. I've done my mental health first aid training and some other things like that, and some community mentor training through TAFE. But yes, I'm a health professional as a physiotherapist, but I'm hopefully becoming a good listener, and when I need to, I can direct people in the right direction for more professional help.
Amazing. Yeah, and I think it's been tricky doing what I think we do, because you're always on that barrier of, I don't know, on the precipice of, I get people texting me or asking me at work just because they know I do this, and it's in the mental health world. They ask me a lot more, and also that clinical stuff. I have to just hands up say, look, I can't give you advice on that. I'd love to. I can always listen though. That's like definitely a skill. And I think that's, I'm sure you get that a lot in your day job, but obviously at the Man Walk as well. So tell us about how did it all start? First Man Walk, where did the idea come from? And, was it a success?
Yeah, great. Like most good ideas, it came from a woman in the shape of my lovely wife, Beck. So I guess the Man Walk started about 2 years ago when I was just in some bad habits, to be honest. I was staying up late of a weeknight, paperwork, a bit of Netflix, a couple of glasses of wine, and it just kept, pushing into some later nights and, waking up in the morning, not firing and ready to go. So I was chatting with my wife, Beck, and she said, well, how about you try and shuffle things around and get to bed a bit earlier and get up in the morning and go for a walk with the sun and start the day fresh. So I did, and immediately it just changed things. So I'd get up, I'd be in at Kiama at 10 to 6. I'd get a coffee and go for a walk around the beautiful Kiama Harbour with the sun coming up. And I was back home in the door at my place at 7, loaf of bread, ready to go. I've got 2 lovely boys, they're 7 and 9, and I just hit the ground running. And I had a bit of a thing that I made up of a no rule. So between sort of 7 when I got home and they're coming downstairs and sort of 7:30, essentially anything they asked me was a yes, as long as it wasn't going to, maim or kill or something like that, I was ready. I was fresh and I was awake. And if it was, play a puzzle or kick the footy, whatever it might be, I was ready to go. So, yeah, it was a really nice change to my morning routine. And after a couple of months, we were away camping with some mates, and I was talking to them about my morning routine, and they said, look, can we come along with you? And they weren't close mates, those guys who I knew of. There were sort of some different families camping. I didn't know them that well. And I said, yeah, of course. So I went from myself to 3 or 4 or 5 blokes walking around the harbour of a morning, and we're walking every day, like Monday to Friday. And yeah, the power in that, of that connection and some camaraderie and some talking, and a great way to start the day fresh with a coffee and a chat and talk about, how your day's been, and, most of the things we talk about, during the man walk then, during the man walk now, during the man walk in Geelong or Darwin, is absolute rubbish. We're not saving any huge problems of the world here. We're talking about, our intercept try at football from 1998, or the, some structural engineering, or, some world events and things like that. But it's just that connection, that regularity, that coming together, the walking side by side, shoulder to shoulder. We're not always super at this face-to-face kind of stuff, us fellas. So I find that movement and exercise and the side-by-side, non-threatening nature of it is been some of the key parts to a success.
I can certainly vouch for that kind of face-to-face thing. When the first, I don't get to many barbecues now anymore, but because we run a fair few. But when I first did the one in Sydney, the fact that I could cook, not kind of look someone directly in the eye, but have a couple of people chatting while you're doing an activity, and the amount they opened up after a while, it might take a couple of times, and just having that little chat, and yeah, it was non-threatening, it was so comfortable. And then maybe one of them would help me on the barbecue, so they're actually doing something, and gradually things came out, or they didn't, or we just talked, like you said, about anything and everything. So how did it go from that first sort of Kiama walk to 2, 3, 4, and then off the charts?
Yeah, we I think after a few months, this was 2 years ago, that I first started walking, and then over those first few months, some of the boys joined. And I think after a few months, we realised that there was something in this. We were getting a few sort of, other people coming along, mates of mates, and we thought we better call ourselves something here. So really, within the space of a walk, 40 minutes, we come up with the man walk. We came up with the logo, Walk Talk Support. One of the boys has emailed a designer mate of his, and she came back with a logo, which is the existing logo. I had a chat I realised there was something going on here, that we're onto something. And I had a chat about insurance and some other sort of structures and things like that. And we were called the Man Walk. We started a Facebook page, and off we went. One of my mates then moved to Wollongong, half an hour up the road, and said, look, this, I love this Man Walk. I'm going to start one in Wollongong. Is that okay? So yeah, no problems, I said. So we set up a separate, Wollongong group, and off Dave and the boys went on a Friday morning from Diggy's Cafe in Wollongong. And then a lovely bloke from Coolangatta reached out and said, look, I love what you guys are doing down there. I've seen you on Facebook. I've got a bunch of men in need up here who are a bit lonely and could do with some connection and exercise. Could we start a Coolangatta Man Walk? So, and that's how it went for probably 3 or 4 or 5 months. We thought, this is pretty cool. We've got Kiama and Wollongong and Coolangatta here. And we cruised along like that for maybe 4 or 5 months. And then one of our posts on a Thursday night in the Wollongong group went viral overnight. And all it was, it just said, any Wollongong guys, looking for a walk or a talk on Friday morning and feel like some company and a chat, meet you at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning down at the harbour. And so that was about 8 p.m. By 8 a.m. the next day, that had gone to 1.4 million people and been shared 8,500 times, something like that. So we did some investigating, and we're still not quite sure how it happened. I think just Facebook sometimes picks up things and gives them a shove. So look, you'd pay, I think, companies would pay huge money for that kind of viral advertising. And for us, we then went from 3 man walks to about 45 in the space of 12 weeks after that. We ended up on the front page of the local papers here in Wollongong about the man walk. We were live on the Today Show the following Monday, a lot of local media and radio and national and Queensland-based media. and it really just shoved us along. So we had to get our skates on and catch up with that as well, with our processes and governance and risk assessment and insurances, and our website and our Facebook, and having the team put together to respond to all of these messages. And yeah, we sort of chased our tail, but did it pretty well. We're honest about what we were doing, and unlike you, Terry, we're an organisation that gets blokes together for a walk and a talk, or a barbecue and a talk. Where we're not a mental health organisation. I sometimes say we're a secretarial hub that either helps blokes find a walk near them, or if there isn't one, we help them start one near them. And we've got some really specific processes around that now. Finding a walk you can do through our website or through the Facebook page and join the groups, but it's free. You don't need to sign up. We can't sign up, so it's free. You find the walk, you rock up, and that's it. We have some more things in the pipeline around if people want to become members and access more information, and the newsletter comes out next week. But the simplicity is the key, and I think that's what drew people to it. Our core demographic is sort of the probably 30 to 60 year old bloke, and which is probably the hardest fella to reach. We're pretty simple, us fellas. We need to make it simple, and we need to make it easy and non-confronting. And I think that's been the real beauty, that guys realise that it is, coming along for a walk and a talk. And if you wanted to talk about, how your week's been, and football and surfing and things like that, that's great. But also if you want to have a bit of a chat about, geez, I've had a tough week and I'm struggling at work and my boss has been riding me, or I'm having a bit of trouble at home, with bits and pieces, then there's someone to listen and sometimes share a story, which in a way is advice, but just acknowledging and some shared experience and telling stories. That's where the power is.
No, I love it. And I've always been amazed. Even when I first looked at your website, I was like, this is so easy to navigate. And it's something as simple as that, like for a guy that we don't particularly want to do too much research. This is a big generalization, right? But not doing too much research, we let it get too far before something's a problem sometimes. So therefore we need an answer quite quickly. And to be able to just do those simple things, i.e. go to your website, go to the location, see where it is, turn up, not have to register all your details. It's, you can be as anonymous or as not as anonymous as you want. Obviously, if you're on the Facebook group and your name's generally there, but I just was amazed at the simplicity, and like really, even me, like finding it comfortable looking at it. And I think that's exactly the same as what we found when we did something simple. It started taking off. We had no plan, no strategy, no like business plan to have X amount of things, but we knew it could be templated and replicated if it was done properly. So I think that's just incredible that it took the spark. I guess my question was going to be, without that spark, i.e. the pure luck of that just going bam, and then the world going, hey, this is incredible, something so simple, so impactful, what would you have done? Or do you think, were you planning just to grow it steadily and just see what happens, or did you have any grand plan or not?
No, there was no grand plan. And I think it was to grow it steadily. We had the conversation, it was in the September that things went well. No, sorry, it was in the June that things exploded. And we'd had the conversation, I remember, even just the week before when we had Kiama, Wollongong and Coolangatta. And I remember I said to a mate, wouldn't it be awesome if we had like 5 walks by the end of the year, if another 2, areas, and we thought, wonder where some mates are that might have moved to a different town that might be interested in it. Then we thought, no, that probably won't happen. But yeah, by the end of that year, there were 50 or 52 walks, I think. So yeah, there was no grand plan. It just happened fairly organically, or not even that virally, I suppose. Yeah. And I'm quite proud of the team that we've sort of put together to chase our tails and communicate well and consistently to help people find it. Yeah, and as you say, mate, simplicity is the key. Even the website, it's, find a walk, start a walk, buy a hoodie. That's all we want.
Yeah.
We're just blokes. We're really simple. If it's any harder than that, even like finding your credit card details to buy a hoodie is hard enough. So that's the plan.
Love it. And I can't remember what my next question was going to be. I had one there based on what you just said. The simplicity being, I think sometimes we overcomplicate it. Like we think, okay, we've got this file of this. What more can we do? And then you go off on this grand plan. Like we've had meetings with our committee sometimes where we've gone, oh yeah, well maybe we'll do this, and maybe we'll do this campaign, or maybe this will happen. And after an hour, I've just gone back to the start and gone, but what is it how do we get here? And it was just providing that space. And the barbecue was just a vehicle, like just so happened that it was a good vehicle for it. And a walk is clearly a great vehicle for it as well. So the simplicity, as much as I think about it all the time and I have these grand plans, I let my mind wander a bit, I always bring it back to the stories. And on a Sunday evening, if I get texts and emails and all sorts of things going on, and just a bit of a feedback from what happened at those barbecues. And that for me is then like, oh, wow, like that's why we're doing it. Like we provided those 2 hours for someone to come along. So for example, we had one recently, a guy had not been out of the house for a year, literally, and had come to the barbecue, and that was a massive step. So for me, those stories are just what makes it. So I was going to ask you, is there any, I don't know, standout stories from guys that have come to the walks, or anything that really just sort of stands out for you in the last couple of years?
Yeah, there've been a few. It's pretty powerful, and like you, mate, I try to stay generally across everything that's going on and across the different groups. Our structure, we have our outward-facing Facebook page and Instagram page, and then we have like the groups which work really well. So in our Facebook community group, which is our sort of master group, there's 13,500 men in there. I'll just add that there's a Women of the Man Walk group, so we have hundreds and hundreds of messages from ladies, from partners, mums, wives, daughters, either asking about how they can get their dad involved or their partner involved with a man walk, but more so just thanking us for providing the opportunity to their man in their life to get out for a walk and a talk and, combat some loneliness and isolation and get some exercise. So we direct those ladies. We've got a Women of the Man Walk group, which is just for the ladies. I'm not part of that. We have one of our female admin that controls that and sort of oversees the content in that as well. But I love getting onto our main community page, but also I'm a member of all of the groups around Australia. So whether it's, Alice Springs or Perth or Mudgee or Maitland or Redcliffe, and just the internal communication in there. So the Kiama group's got 130 people, Geelong's got 200, and I'll get in and just sort of say, hey boys, what's going on? But just some of the content in there about sharing stories, maybe sharing a podcast that they've liked, or sharing a book, or someone, some of the guys get together for a coffee or a meal outside of the man walk now, and they're forming meaningful relationships. So that's been really powerful. The one lovely bloke in Kiama who had recently moved to town, this is probably 12 months or so ago, and he reached out to me via the man walk and just said he was struggling, and I met him for a walk and a chat, and he's become a really regular member of the Man Walk. But I think one of his testimonials is on our website, and he honestly says that the Man Walk saved his life. He said he didn't have anyone to connect with in this part of the world. He'd been going through a really tough time, and he was on the edge. And he says that he came across the Man Walk in our group on Facebook and reached out to us, and that we, connected, and he went for a walk with us that next morning. And yeah, he said it's not exaggerating to say that the Man Walk saved his life. So that's a really high end story like that, which is amazing. But the middle range stories about men who have just, lost 20 kilos by walking, 2 or 3 times a week with the Man Walk, and met some new friends, and, had some conversations they hadn't done before. That's super. I really, really love hearing those ones. Yeah,
I think we've had a couple of similar things with those stories, and completely blows me away, because that wasn't what we set out to do. It wasn't to like save someone's life, or we had that, we've had those. But back to the kind of, someone asked me recently a question, and since then I get asked it a lot, like, what did you want to achieve with it? And I said, well, I think I wanted to achieve that I saw there wasn't much social outlet for men that was organized already for them, and it was easy just to access, and that wasn't, okay, I'm feeling sad, here's some medication, here's this, off you go. Like that was kind of, no real expertise in it except my own experience. But what I found is, at one of the regional ones in Victoria, a guy came back to me and said, we now meet for coffee in the week. We have a WhatsApp group. We all, catch up separately, and we just check in on each other. we have joined a cycling group, we've done blah, blah. And I didn't actually know that until we had a proper chat. And I was like, wow, that is just gold. Like that is, if we can be that spark, then surely that's, that we've done everything that we wanted to achieve. So yeah, I think it's fantastic. And the feedback is just, you get so caught sometimes in the process. I don't know about you, but I do. I get caught in the process, worrying about the marketing and the operations of it, making sure everyone's okay and safe, and then you don't, and then the stories come and you go, oh, that stops me in my tracks. And I think, yes, like we're doing something, although we don't measure that amount of stories. So we don't go, oh, there's been 2 stories this week. Those are like, yeah, we're doing it. And we are, I think, as probably you do it on to start off nothing, there's a couple of bucks here and there to get it going. And we're very lucky we have a sort of corporate sponsor now. But how have you managed to run it as you do? Like, have you kept it lean? Do you have like sponsors, or how do you do it now?
Yeah, it has been difficult. There's been many hours of unpaid work through 6 or 8 people. But when we exploded in the June there, and all of these emails were coming through, and media requests and requests to start a new walk, a lovely mate of mine from Kiama, who I won't say because he'll kill me if I say his name, but he's a very generous friend. He called me and he said, you guys need some admin help. I said, yeah, I know. And he said, I said, we just need to find some money. He said, no, that's why I'm calling. I'm paying for it. He said, I want to pay for someone, 20, 25 hours a week, admin for you for 6 months. That's my donation, which is a fair whack of money. And we had the back and forward, no, mate, I don't want you to do that. Yes, I'm doing it. And so that was a godsend that helped us manage that initial time. We've sustained ourselves through the last sort of year and a half by applying for a number of small grants. There's some Club New South Wales grants that fit really well with what we're trying to achieve in terms of the local areas. They're anywhere from sort of $1,000 to $3,000. We've had a couple of sort of charity golf days, and again with the generosity of sponsors for that, we've been able to make a nice profit out of those. We make a small margin out of our online store. We make about $8 or $9 profit per garment when people buy a t-shirt or a hoodie or $5 or so out of a hat, and that just keeps us ticking along. But yeah, there's a lot of work behind the scenes, and as you know, mate, your committee as well, and our Slack channels on our app are blowing up. We meet once a month. There's a lot of structure and a lot of hard work happening behind the scenes, which I think is important that we're letting people know that as we move forward too with our newsletter. We're refining our systems. Salesforce are helping us put together a CRM, which will help automate some of our processes. But our goal really is to find a corporate sponsor, which I think it'll be that way rather than government. Government seems a bit too difficult, unfortunately, even though, we've grown really well, we're making a difference and we're getting wonderful feedback. The government funding space seems quite difficult. So we're pushing through the end part of our process of really refining our strategic plan, refining our mission and vision, which our vision is connecting men, strengthening communities, is the master vision of the Man Walk. And we're working through and really identifying and formalising our risk assessment and governance processes, so that then we can sort of take it and start to approach some bigger businesses and say, hey, here's what we're doing. Here's how many men we have involved. Here's some stories about the difference we're making. Can you help us? So, ideally in the next 6 or 12 months, mate, we might find someone, maybe from tonight, we might find someone that says, look, I like what you guys are doing. We'd like to help, because ideally, good old bullfed me, Burnsy the physio, I'm okay at organising things, but with how quickly we've grown to 60 walks around Australia, and with the goal of having 300 or 400 walks around Australia in 3 years, I need to be able to shuffle aside and put someone in my place, or put someone in a chief operations place, and be remunerated for that. Not me, the new person that we put in, that runs the organisation for us. There's so many capable people out there who, have been working in business and management, or maybe in charities, who I know could help us. We just need to find the means to be able to find them and employ them, so that we can go from strength to strength.
Yeah, that resonates hugely. I think I've had a similar Pete, who's on our board and a good friend of mine, he jokes, I've tried to quit 4 times now, but it never quite happens. When I'm a bit stressed or I'm a bit, I let it get to me. I don't ask for help, and then I come to a board meeting and say, I think I'm going to take a step back soon, and it never happens. And I think I've come to realization where we are now, and you're probably kind of in a similar space, I guess, that, man, like the work that goes on behind the scenes, we make it look simple because we want it to be simple for people to access, and we don't want everyone to have to worry about all that stuff. Like, it should be easy for guys to access, but it is. If I started toting up what I do, I think I'd get scared and go, oh, hold on a minute. And I've got, we've both got young families and everything else going on, and I think I've really had to work on my ability to ask for help. The irony of the struggles I had were not asking for help, and now I see it sometimes happening again where I go, hold on a minute, I've got to ask. And then you ask and you go, hold on, there's some good people out there. But the funding aspect, I'm glad you said about the government stuff, because we kind of almost went down that route and we thought the same. Like, we started this time process of just to apply for one local grant. And it took me hours, and I've done like tons of paperwork stuff in my day job. I'm good at admin, I'm good at organizing.
Yeah.
And man, like it was stressful just doing it for me for a few hours, filling this thing out, and it was for $1,000 or something. And don't get me wrong, that goes very far with us, but it just isn't feasible, especially at that grassroots level. And I don't know enough about the funding element, but I do know that from sort of speaking with the likes of the guys at the AMHF and Glenn and everyone else there, their emphasis is going to be on like lobbying a bit more for support for grassroots organizations, or making it easier, because I don't know how you get your hands on the sort of money I see thrown around. And I got asked the other day on a webinar, a corporate one, what do you think? Don't you think it's brilliant all this money's gone into mental health? I was like, I don't see any of it. No. And I was laughing, and I was being very honest. I wasn't being rude. I just said, we are very lucky we have a corporate sponsor, and that is paid for X, but if we had to rely on other things, this wouldn't be where it was. Like, it just wouldn't. And that can be a little bit, I can imagine that's a little bit stressful, because this baby is now growing, as is yours, and you're in this space where it can't go back. Like, it's not going to end because it's doing too much good. So how have you, and how do you take on that kind of stress, anxiety, or are you good at that? Or like, how do you deal with it yourself? Not just running a charity, but, family life, job, everything else you do. What works for you?
A few things. I count myself as a fairly high capacity kind of person, so I think I can take on quite a few things and keep charging forward. I think I can. And I like to be on the go. I like challenging myself, but I do bite off more than I can chew. I've got a busy physiotherapy practice here with 2 great business partners, and myself and 6 mates bought a pub, as you do.
Oh, wow.
And some other bits and pieces, a lovely Kiama Stronger Community group that we're involved with here, me and some others. We've had a really awful disproportionate rate of youth suicide over the last few months. Youth and into their 20s, we had 6 suicides in about 8 weeks through the middle part of the year. So a bunch of local people have come together to form a Stronger Community Committee, and we've got a mental health index survey out at the moment, asking people for the services they feel are lacking in the community. So that's something that I was really pleased to be involved with, but again, takes up some time and energy. And hopefully I'm a good husband and a good dad to my wonderful boys in between. So there's a lot to manage. I do a few things. I see a psychologist 3 or 4 times a year, and she's absolutely wonderful. So she keeps me on the straight and narrow. I have been working on my meditation practices. I've gone through some Vedic meditation training a few months ago, and I really enjoy that. I'm trying to get into good routines of 20 minutes every morning, and then try and get an afternoon or evening session in, which I haven't been very successful in lately. I've got some wonderful friends who I have open and honest conversations with. Some of that came from a lot of sport that I played as a young bloke. I was a rugby union player, and some of the blokes involved with the early stages of the man walk and still were sort of my mates from rugby. And I've been lucky. I've had been able to form, really strong friendships. I've had some adversity in my life, losing my mum and dad. I lost dad in a car accident when I was 23, then lost mum to cancer a little while after that. So, some of the friendships, even that became stronger through them when I needed them, are rock solid. So I'm very open, pick up the phone and say to a mate that I'm struggling and I'd love to go for a walk and a talk or a coffee. And, my mate tells me he loves me and, supports me. So I've got some really good friend and family supports in my lovely wife, Beck. I see a professional psychologist 3 or 4 times a year. And I'm trying to work on some nice, consistent meditation techniques. The thing that I haven't been doing the last year or 2 is exercise, which is really disappointing me. I've got myself overloaded and I've put on a bunch of weight and I'm out of shape, and that's getting me down both physically and emotionally. So that's a big thing that I need to add to my life, is to increase my exercise component and maybe a bit healthier with my diet and get a bit fitter and lose a few kgs, because I haven't been attending to my physical health all that well the last couple of years.
I love the just listening to the things you listed, and the more I feel old. I'm 36, but I feel very old right now. And my body at sports now doesn't last as long. Like everything just, I feel is, a little bit slower. My sleep is not quite as good and everything else. But you listed all the things that I now only know from all the stuff I've been through, for doing stuff for Mr. Perfect, from working on myself, from reading, listening to others that are, much cleverer than I am, whether it be a mental health professional, whether it meeting people through this from Mr. Perfect, all those simple things you touched on. And like only one of them was essentially clinical, right? The psychologist. And I do exactly the same. I see someone every 2 months and he says to me, don't come to me in crisis. Like he's very blunt with me. He's very, very good. And he just says, don't come to me in crisis, because you've got to work on this stuff in between. So if it was exercise, if it was seeing you, spending more time with your family, if it was work, and don't get me wrong, it sounds like we've got a similar, I take on too much. I'm not very good at saying no. And then not in a controlling way, but I just feel like, if I can do it right, then I'll do it. And guess what? You can never fit all those things in. So for you, it might be the exercise that's gone. For me, it's been reading, doing things that will calm me down, that are really good for me, because I feel those things I'm not doing enough of. So I've replaced them with podcasts, right? So I listen to podcasts, I'll sit here or, work, I have podcasts in driving, you name it, I'll have them before I go to bed. But even my psychologist said, but they're just distractions. He goes, why do you actually listen? And I said, yeah. And the more I thought about it, I thought, it calms me, but sometimes it's just a distraction. It's not actually me working on something, So one thing for me is reading. Like I've got to start. I've definitely got to do a bit more of that to sort of as my, me time. But completely get you. It's really tricky because we're trying to tell everyone, look after yourselves and do what's right for you, and tell everyone, reach out to people when you need it. There's times when you be quite self-aware, you can realize you might not be doing it yourself. So it's tricky. But I love the simple things you mentioned. As together as a whole, I think they're great suggestions.
Thank you, mate. I'm sure you're like me too. I love a podcast too, but sometimes I bet you the same as we end up listening to things that are more, motivational or businessy and things like that. And it's drives that way where we should. On the same, I've been reading more the last 12 months. My wife bought me a Kindle for my birthday like last year, and that sort of, I think that was her saying, hey, Buffhead, get off, Tony Robbins and Aubrey Marcus and Tim Ferriss and whatever it might be, and have a read. And I've really enjoyed getting back to reading. And I went back and read a couple of what did I do? I actually read, I read the Celestine Prophecy, which I read in the 90s, which is, a bit more of an awakening one. I really enjoyed that. But then I read, again, like from old school, The Power of One and Tandia and some of those old Ross Courtney ones. I'm reading at the moment The Quickening Omnibus, which is a 3-part sort of book. Okay. It's a bit of a sort of medieval type thing. Not like Game of Thrones, not as violent. It's more about the interactions around an old sort of village. There's some magic and mystery and things in there as well. So I'm really enjoying that. But I do love a podcast, and I think you probably listen to some Tim Ferriss as well. I think that book Behind My Head is one of Tim Ferriss' books, I'd say, Club of Mentors. But I really liked his yesterday. I had one of my favourite podcasters, Tim Ferriss, interviewing one of my favourite authors and podcasters in Seth Godin, who
Yes, I like
wrote
Seth.
This Is Marketing. But I really love his podcast called Akimbo, to Bend the Culture. Brilliant. I really like that podcast, and his book called Tribes. If you haven't read Tribes, I'll send you a copy, mate. I've got a few here in my room. That's one of the best books I've read. And yes, that was a good podcast last night. Tim Ferriss interviewing Seth Godin, and some really nice, not life hacks. He talks about hacks and where the name hack came from, which was Hackney. But yeah, I'm finding that range of not stimuli, just range of opportunities to sort of decompress. So it can't be all, go. You can't sort of come out of work and listen to Gary Vee and think I'm going to 10x business, I'm going to do that. Like, you got to chill out. You got to listen to some tunes. You got to listen to, read a novel, do some of those kind of things to decompress.
No, you're right. And it's I'm the same. Whole range of things. It can be really hardcore, like not necessarily business, but sometimes business. And then the more thoughtful things I need to do more. But I think I'm a lot wiser at what works for me now and what doesn't. Whereas maybe 5-6 years ago, when I first started Mr. Perfect, I had no idea. Like, I was jumping from all sorts of things and trying to figure out things. And I think getting back to connection, I think the reason at the time I was looking for connection, but actually I got a kick out seeing others connect. So I was very happy, like, being insular and doing my own thing and working on things, and but seeing others connect was what I get a kick out of, and I still do, and I still get that from the barbecues. But the walks, walking for me, that's one I mentioned at the start, but I remember times where I was, my head was just going a million miles an hour. I just left the house, just walked, and just went for a long walk. And I come back, and even on my own, or even if I've walked with mates or whatever it might be, and that just works for me. I think Steve Jobs, even though I don't know about his sort of character, but I think even in his sort of biographies and the people have said about him, when he wanted to go through something like a big, important business problem or something really complex, he'd go on notoriously long walks around Silicon Valley, like just go for hours and work something out and come back. So yeah, I don't know what it is about it. Maybe it's the movement and giving you a chance to actively work through it instead of sort of stewing in it, being stationary. But definitely works for me. But I was going to ask you what what's the future for ManWalk? Like, where do you want it to be, and where's it going, I guess?
Yeah, thanks, mate. The future is to grow. The future is to grow. We're sort of have bits and pieces when after the whole influx, and it was so overwhelming, it was so hard work. Then I had a bit of a time where I was like, oh man, this is too hard. And we had a bit of a dip down, but then we had some wonderful positive feedback and some new walks starting, and that were really sustainable. And I've come to realize, and the committee and I've come to realize that, okay, we've really got something here. It's sustainable. It's been a year and a half or more now that these groups have been walking for. Sometimes a group falls away, often if the ambassador moves away or something happens like that. So our group leaders are called ambassadors, but and we also need to make sure that we're providing the groups with content and information for their communities as well. But we have a goal in our strategic plan of having a man walk in 80% of the LGAs in Australia, and there's 547 LGAs in Australia. So we set a fairly lofty goal in 3 years of having 450 odd, 480 odd man walks around Australia. And you know what? I don't think that's unachievable. I think if we can get our strategies correct and start to link in with local councils and their, community development team, get our structures right, hopefully find some funding from some corporates or government that we can, push our case forward and do things really well. I don't see why we can't have, hundreds of these things around Australia and around the world perhaps as well. There's some insurance things for us to listen to and look into, but we have a group in Rotorua in New Zealand who walk. There's a group in the north of England, also north of London, called Fleet. And I was saying to you offline before we started, Terry, that we've had requests from Dublin, Ireland, and Palm Springs, California, to start walks in the coming weeks. So Yeah, that sounds like a good road trip. Maybe we could just do that. Maybe you and I could set up some barbecues over there as well. We'll do a bit of a world tour.
There you go. And for me, it's just you talking about it. It's just a no-brainer. I'm like, why would someone not fund this? Like, why? The fact that, and I think because we're lucky that we have, a support that gives us enough to run each year in the insurance world. I'm thinking like health insurance is good for a health insurer to promote the getting out there preventative. I know they're very big about that at the moment and putting money and stuff behind this. I really hope you get it, decently funded so it can go anywhere. And it's such a great template and model that you can replicate. I think it's actually incredible. I'm going to read. I don't know if I got actually questions. It was more statements in the feed. Normally when the chat's going so well, I forget to read them. So apologies. Andy mentioned he's just started a barbecue for us in Perth, in Mullaloo. We've got this southern pocket of Perth has gone crazy, and I'm meeting some incredible people from Perth, guys there. Yeah. So Andy said, what a brilliant idea. I think you just hit the nail on the head. We let the exercise go by the wayside. Love the idea of an early start. So it looks like I'm going to have to set the alarm for tomorrow. That's excellent. Andy's a great guy. Josh, I think and I know Josh from Wollongong. How do organisations connect with the Man Walk?
Yeah, it's that's our sort of part of our next strategy is how do we offer more to our man walkers? We were nervous early on that we didn't want to make it too scary, and we still don't. The Man Walk needs to be a simple concept to connect men for a walk and a talk. No money, no sign up, that kind of thing. But what we're finding is our man walkers are after more. They're like, oh, how can I find out more about, mental health first aid training? How can I find out more about exercise? So that'll be the next part of our strategy, that we really want to form more specific working relationship with organisations like, Mr. Perfect, and like with Josh, and like with, Blokopedia and Man Anchor, so that we can offer our man walkers options for, education and finding ways that they can connect better with the community. So I guess how do organisations connect with the Man Walk? The easy answer is to send us an email. I know, Josh, so we're already in communication and we're working on some schemes. But if it's bigger organisations and corporates who are trying to reach out to us, just our info@themanwalk.com.au email. Wouldn't it be wonderful if you get off a call one day, or if you check your email and NIB or Medibank Private or Bupa have said, we love what you're doing. We'd love to support. And that's where I'd like to be. I'd like it to be a like-minded business, like a health business, or, if a big bank wants to throw some money, that's fine too. But I just know that we can make such a difference if we just have a bit more capacity. And unfortunately, capacity does sometimes require money. Myself and my team are happy to plug along. We can put in hundreds of hours a month, no worries about that. But yeah, if we can just find a bit more support, so we can bring in some more professional people to work a bit more, geez, I reckon we can do some good things.
Yeah, I think so. And I think what I've learned from talking to people like yourself, and what I've learned in almost 5 years of doing this, I didn't know anything before I started this. It was just a hunch. I did it. It was something. It started to grow. Put in so much time, effort, and it's been worth it. But we need to kind of replicate. We need like-minded people to lighten that load and to do. I've seen little pockets of it in areas where I just said Perth. We've got guys there now who just run with it. They form this little community. There's 5 or 6 just growing, and then they go to each other's barbecues, and then they preach what we do, and they deal with the media stuff there. And that is just the gold, because we've started with the idea of one person. We've kind of replicated that. The same mentality has gone into it. That creates more opportunities for networking there, and they can kind of self-fund in a certain way. And I think what I've learned is, the biggest thing I've learned is, I used to think of, or I didn't know, I wasn't educated on this. It was just, had troubles, repressed them for 30 years. Here you go, here's doctor, medication, psychiatrist. Then I went, okay, that was helping for a while, and I worked my way back. And I see it like this continuum now, just in my own head. I'm not saying this is generally how it works, but we want to be a soft entry to it, so that in a generation's time, hopefully, when my 2 and 4-year-old, encounter some troubles or whatever it might be, they will instinctively know, well, this is where I look first. And it might be a community group or a soft entry, as I call it, into something. and they'll speak up earlier, and hopefully they don't get to that hard crisis end. Like, this will negate that need and all the pressure and money that gets thrown at the top end. So that's the thing I think I've learned. Like, I've learned we need it to be easy as guys. I say easy, but simple. We want to be listened to. Like, we're not, although I think we're told, like, just tell everyone your problems and like get it all out there. I think we're in danger of like letting guys just do that and then leaving them in that space. So clearly there are groups that need to work together better. So that's what I've learned on the whole. But if there's one thing you've learned from doing this, could be anything, what has it been?
Just that power of connection. You know, I thought I had heaps of mates, and I kind of do. I'm very lucky, but the power of human connections, you know, where human beings, human doings. You know, I'm only walking probably Fridays now in Kiama, so I'm looking forward to tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. to go for a walk. But I rock up now, and there's blokes I don't know. The group that walks in Kiama now will be 25 blokes tomorrow. I don't know any of them. Probably half of them I don't know very well. So I spend my time trying to jump around the group and just, you know, finding out a bit more about them. So I guess what I've learned is that the power in society comes from us feeling like we're connected and we have purpose, you know, and that's anywhere from our own self-worth to how we can help each other, just spending time with each other for a common cause and feeling like we're part of something. There's a walk or a barbecue or going for a surf or just a smile as you walk down the street. That's how we can, you know, live this wonderful life and be the best humans that we can be for our work colleagues and our families, by just feeling like we're here for a purpose and we've got connections with our community, and then we connect communities between each other as well. So I don't know. Sorry, I rambled on a bit then. I'm not sure I answered that.
No, it's brilliant. No, that's great. No, I love it. I don't think I could add to that. I think it's a beautiful way to kind of bring it towards a close connection. That's what it's all about. How do people find out about you? What's their sort of website, socials, everything else? If they want to get online now and look for you,
that'd be great. Yeah, wonderful. Our website is themanwalk.com.au, and it's nice and simple. It helps you find a walk near you by going to the state and the town. And if there's not a walk near you and you'd like to start one, there's also a link there that you can communicate with us, and we can take you through a really specific but very easy process about starting a walk. You can also go to our Facebook page, which is The Man Walk, and same thing, Instagram, The Man Walk. Our Facebook is the main communication hub. Obviously, Instagram, we have information that goes out, but they don't have the communication aspect of it. So you can jump onto Facebook and like our page would be great, and follow us. Or if you're a fella, you can go to the Man Walk community group and apply to be a part of that, and we'll approve that. If you're one of the ladies out there who support us, you can ask to join the Women of the Man Walk page. And then if there is a man walk near you and you've sort of seen these jokers walking around with their hats and their shirts, you don't know much about it, you know, maybe jump on that. If you're in Sorrento, in Perth, or in Darwin, or wherever it might be, in Huskisson, jump on and join the internal Man Walk group there, and you can see where the Man Walk starts and a bit of banter around there as well. So yeah, Facebook's our main communication tool, but I guess themanwalk.com.au gives everyone a good overview of what we're doing, and also a more formal way to communicate with us through our admin. Love it.
Matt, love your work. I'm going to let you get away so you can get up early for your walk tomorrow. Really appreciate your time. It's been long overdue, and just listening to you talk tonight has given me many thoughts, ideas, and things about what we're doing that we can do better as well. So really appreciate that to serve our guys better. So everyone, I will post the links to the Man Walk and everything in the comments, and share, and I'll share tomorrow this as well. If anyone wants to watch it back, then please do. I'm sure you'll get a lot from it. So thanks again, Mark. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you, mate. Thank you for the work you do and for the opportunity tonight. And I really look forward to the Man Walk and Mr. Perfect working more closely together as we move forward. We're in the same space, and I think we're going to have a really strong working relationship as we move forward. I'm really excited about it, mate.
I think so too. Take care, mate.
Thanks, mate. See you, everyone.
Cheers.